Dear friends, welcome to yet another installment of Strategic Power. In this video, we will analyze how, after an attack that resulted in the death of 3 American soldiers in Jordan, President Biden commits to retaliating against those responsible, possibly armed groups, supported by Iran. At the same time, he faces internal pressures to adopt a tougher stance towards Iran, without looking vulnerable. How will Biden manage to balance a strong enough military retaliation without provoking a widespread escalation in the Middle East that could complicate his re-election? If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it now and turn on the notification bell to stay updated. The President of the United States, Joe Biden, has further heightened the risk of increased tension and guaranteed a response to the attack that resulted in the death of 3 American soldiers in Jordan. Biden assured a response, pledged to retaliate, promising a proportional response. The crucial question is, what will this response be, especially in the face of Iran's denial, which denies any connection with the incident? There is a great possibility that Iran did not have direct involvement in the attack. That is, it is quite likely that Iranian military or military advisors were not directly involved in the militia responsible for the drone attack that resulted in the death of 3 American soldiers and left around 30 wounded, 8 of whom are in serious condition, requiring transfer to major US bases for medical treatment. So this number of victims may increase. Although Iran may not be directly linked to this specific attack, it is responsible for funding, supplying weapons and training various militias in the region. Thus, Iran avoids getting directly involved in a confrontation with the United States, in which its chances of victory would be reduced. However, it is in the interest of Iran and these groups it supports in the region to cause instability in the Middle East, attacking American, British, and Israeli interests in the area. This is exactly what these groups are doing in different war theaters in the region right now. The most critical aspect lies in the Gaza Strip, where the Iran-backed group Hamas is in conflict with Israel's defense forces since the terrible events that occurred on October 7th in northern Israel. In addition, Israel's defense forces face daily clashes with Hezbollah, another Iran-funded group supposedly acting in solidarity with the Palestinians. The Houthis, also funded by Iran, are trying to provoke and attract the United States into the conflict. Now, these militias are operating in the border region between Jordan, Syria, and Iraq. Given the indirect or direct involvement of the United States in each of these battle scenarios, President Joe Biden has been taking a moderate approach so far. However, the death of American soldiers early in the presidential campaign forces Biden to consider a more robust response on these 4 battlefronts. The big question is, what level of force will be employed? And the second question, would Biden opt for a direct attack on Iranian territory? This would be highly explosive, but may be seen as a necessary option by American strategists. The crucial issue is determining what the tone of this response will be, which needs to reconcile political considerations, military calculations, and, especially, take into account the new event you mentioned, the attack on a ship in the Red Sea region by the Houthis. The United States' position must be carefully considered to avoid interference with Joe Biden's re-election plans. The response must be calculated in a way that shows firmness, but at the same time avoids an uncontrolled escalation that could further destabilize the region. Striking a delicate balance between the appropriate military response and consideration of political impacts is the challenging task the American government faces in this complex scenario. American soldiers face attacks in the Middle East, while President Joe Biden is criticized by Republicans at home, especially for a perceived weak response to Iran. Republicans, including former President Donald Trump, argue that Biden's approach has contributed to Hamas hostility toward Israel's defense forces. Because of these pressures, Biden finds himself needing to respond militarily to show determination against Iran-backed militias, ensuring the United States will not be passive in the region and will not tolerate the loss of its troops. At the same time, he also needs to formulate a response that addresses Republican criticism at home, demonstrating that he is committed to national security and defending American interests in the Middle East. The challenge is balancing these responses to deal with both military issues and domestic political concerns. The influence of international issues rarely decides elections in the United States. However, Republicans are skillfully building a narrative of a weak president, unable to face the great challenges of the country. They intertwine issues such as immigration, a crucial issue for the American electorate, with issues such as Iran and the economy, creating an image of weakness in several important areas for the country. Facing this narrative, President Biden feels compelled to react. Thus, it is likely that Biden will re-evaluate his political approach, previously marked by moderation to avoid expanding conflicts develops in the Middle East. Now he will need to take a more assertive, yet controlled stance in order to deter militias from attacking Americans. The difficulty lies in finding the right balance, carrying out an attack strong enough to deter, but not so intense as to trigger a war involving Hezbollah, the Houthis, militias, and Iran itself simultaneously. The United States' next steps will be crucial in determining developments in the next phases of this complex war scenario.